Nearly all of the reaction from college football this past weekend was centered on Ryan Day and his blow up at Lou Holtz after the game. And I think justifiably so. It makes a lot of sense that on national TV in a big game between two powers, head coach screaming about an 86-year-old man is going to draw a lot of attention and reaction. That's just how things work. And I don't know if Marcus Freeman should send Ryan Day a fruit basket for taking some of that attention away from him, because if Ryan Day doesn't do that, I wonder how much of the reaction from the Ohio State Notre Dame game goes to the fact that Notre Dame only had 10 guys on the field for the final two plays of the game, and also that they kind of botched their last offensive drive. And that's the topic of today's discussion here on the Daily Huddle is, after a game like that, what is the perception of Marcus Freeman? How do we view Marcus Freeman? And is it fair to even have an opinion of the job Marcus Freeman is doing thus far at Notre Dame? Those are things that I'm pondering in my own head and I'm waffling on. I don't know. Is it too early to have definitive answers? Because I think Marcus Freeman gets lumped into the national perception of Notre Dame, and I don't know if it's fair or not. And that's not I'm questioning whether it's fair or not, or I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying literally I don't know. Because the perception around Notre Dame is that Notre Dame doesn't win big games. And that's fair. It's 100% fair. It's 100% valid in that perception. Like, I don't even know if it's perception as much as it's a baseline fact. Notre Dame hasn't won a New Year's Six bowl game since 1994. They are 0-10. And it seems like every time on the big stage, especially with their green jerseys, it just doesn't go well for them. But I don't know that Marcus Freeman can bear that. I don't know that that's his burden to bear. And so is there some semblance of a preconceived notion that because Marcus Freeman is the head coach at Notre Dame, ipso facto, Marcus Freeman doesn't win big games because Notre Dame doesn't win big games? And there is truth to that, yes. That during Marcus Freeman's tenure, they've got 2 losses to Ohio State, a loss to USC, loss to Stanford, and a loss to Marshall. A loss to Marshall is not a big game as much as it's just a bad loss. On the flip side of that, Notre Dame still has 2 chances to get big wins this year. 3 if Clemson ever gets its head from its woohoo. Yet to be seen. They play Duke on Saturday at Duke on the road. College game day will be there. And this is one of those kind of crappy no-win situations for Notre Dame. Because if Notre Dame loses at Duke on Saturday, you lost to Duke. Whether they're ranked 17th in the country or not, you lost to Duke. And you're Notre Dame. And the perception remains that you lose big games. If you win, well, yeah, it's Duke. That's not a big game. And it's one of the things that, like, I've had this argument with people on Twitter in the last, 72 hours is, Ryan Day doesn't win big games at Ohio State. It's stupid. It's a stupid argument. Like, the guys won a Big Ten championship. Are Big Ten championship games not big games? The guys coached in the national championship game. Is the college football playoff semifinal not a big game? It's just a dumb argument. And it's the same, like Peyton Manning used to get that knock of like, well, I can't win the big game. Like they played in the AFC championship game like 4 times before people were like, they don't win big games. Well, I would say an NFL playoff game is a big game. It's dumb to pretend that it's not. If College game day is going to be at your game on that Saturday, it's a big game, regardless of whether Duke loses out or not. At the time of that game, Notre Dame and Duke are ranked, and it's going to be a big game. You're on the road, and College Game Day's there. Sorry, there's a reason College Game Day ain't going to Rice versus UTSA because it ain't a big game. You know what it is? Duke Notre Dame on Saturday. So the Notre Dame detractors will already tell you that if Notre Dame wins over Duke, well, that's not a big game. Yes, it is. The downside of the idea that Marcus Freeman might be a coach that withers and wilts in big time situations is he's lost twice to Ohio State, lost to Marshall, lost to Stanford, and lost to USC. It's been a pretty good record so far until you look at, okay, you've lost to 3 teams, I think, who are better than you. I don't think it's outrageous to say that Ohio State was better than Notre Dame last year and is better than Notre Dame this year and lost to USC last year. And they'll have an opportunity to play USC here in a couple of weeks at home that you can reverse that narrative. I also think it matters, and I said this yesterday while discussing Ryan Day, that, when Lou Holtz criticized Ryan Day in Ohio State, they lost to Alabama in the national championship game. Yeah, they were the better team. How many of those games that Notre Dame has lost under Marcus Freeman, where they've been the favorite and widely viewed as the better team? Twice in a season and a quarter. Is that all that bad? No. Every college football coach has a loss that they're like, oh gosh, can you believe? Like Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe. Okay, it's not everybody. Urban Meyer lost bad games to Iowa and Purdue. Got blanked by Clemson in a college football playoff semifinal. Everybody's got one that you go, oh. And whether Marcus Freeman wins the next 10 national championships in a row or not, he'll always be able to look back and say, I started 0-2 and we lost to Ohio State and Marshall to begin my tenure. He'll have that loss against Marshall to the end of his days. And is that a fun one to bear? No, it's not. But I wonder what the perception is of Marcus Freeman. And if it's just me or if this is the national perception. Because there might be more than this, but there are 3 baskets you can put coaches in college football. There are tacticians, the X's and O's guy, the CEO who views everything with that 1,000-foot view, and then, frankly, guys who are viewed as cheerleaders, right? So, for instance, I think like Lincoln Riley and Lane Kiffin are in that tactician, X's and O's, draw things up really well, understand the intricacies of football. And then the CEO type is that Nick Saban, Brian Kelly. You're not necessarily involved 1,000,000% in coaching this specific position group or the intricate details of it's 3rd and 2. We're going to call this play, as much as you're overseeing and making sure everybody is meeting the standard that you want them to meet. And then there's the cheerleader group that I think guys like PJ Fleck, James Franklin, and Deion Sanders are viewed as. That's not my personal opinion. I think that's just, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day of like, well, what is Deion Sanders? Is Deion Sanders a cheerleader? Is he like, how involved is he in the X's and O's? I don't know the answer to that. I do know that Sean Lewis, his offensive coordinator, is probably going to get a multitude of head coaching offers after this season because the work they did in the first 3 weeks was impressive offensively. And I think it leads to some good things for him. I don't know how much Deion Sanders is involved in if he is more the CEO or the tactician. I would lean, or if he's just a cheerleader. I would lean towards the last two, that he is probably a mix of CEO and cheerleader rather than just the cheerleader part. But I wonder, what archetype does Marcus Freeman fit? My instant gut thought feeling is that he is a cheerleader. And I don't know whether that's fair or not. And again, I'm not saying I don't know to question whether. I literally do not have the answer to that question. Which box does Marcus Freeman fit in? And is it okay that he doesn't fit in a box? That might be the bigger question. Is there an alternate path to success? Because you can succeed and be a cheerleader. You can succeed and be a CEO. You can succeed and be a tactician. But is there an offshoot, garbage chute, somewhere alternate path to success if you don't fit into one of those boxes? That I don't have the answer to. And I don't know what other boxes there are. Can Marcus Freeman create his own box? I don't know. I don't know what that box is. Because seemingly those are the archetypes of college football coaches: tactician, CEO, cheerleader. And I think to call a college football coach a cheerleader is sort of like calling an NFL quarterback a game manager, where you don't mean it as an insult, but it's an insult. And there's no way around that, because nobody wants to be viewed as like the things you're doing. All you're doing is hyping your guys up. And then you're resting on your underlings to figure out both the X's and O's, and also the recruiting and the everything that goes into being a CEO of a college football program. But I think it's clear he's not a tactician, right? Like, I don't think you can view somebody as a chess player from the head coaching position after they say, I knew we only had 10 guys on the field and I didn't do anything about it because I didn't want the flag. I don't think you get to play that character of really into the weeds on the X's and O's after that sentence, where somebody and I to be fair, I thought the reaction wasn't necessarily fair to Marcus Freeman, because in the moment it is easy to say, crap, I know we only have 10 guys on the field and I don't want to pick up a penalty. He was asked about it in a post-game press conference, and somebody said, well, it's half the distance to the goal if you do take a penalty. Yes, you have had 35 minutes to think about that situation, where Marcus Freeman had less than 35 seconds to think about all of the things that go into play there. So while it's not a great answer, I'm not excusing the answer, because it's not a great answer. The idea of, well, he should have thought about XYZ is not entirely fair. I don't remember the name of the movie, but you remember the movie where Tom Hanks plays Sully, the pilot that crashes I didn't even crash. He lands the plane in the Hudson River, and the Clint Eastwood made up the whole like fake he was getting investigated or whatever. And he says, they say, you had time to fly to these other airports. You didn't have to crash this thing in the Hudson, and you did. And Tom Hanks's character essentially is like, yes, because when you hit the flock of birds, you already knew what you needed to do. I didn't know that in the moment. So you gave no time for human error and no time for me to process this as a human being. In your simulation, you hit the birds and then go, all right, we're flying to this airport. And then you said you did it. Well, I'm not a robot. And I think that's the same. Like, Marcus Freeman's not a college football analytical robot where you type in the situation into Chat GPT and it spits out what you should do. So it's not a great answer at all, in the slightest. 100% correct. But I think it's somewhat excusable that in the 35 seconds that he had to think about, oh, crap, what should we do? And his response is, I knew we had 10. I didn't throw a guy out there. Because if the ball's at the 1 yard line, what are they going to do if you get a penalty? You have hindsight there. But he's got to think about 100 million things in that moment. So I think it's excusable. But I also don't think you can then put yourself, like, you can't bang the table and be like, damn it, I'm really into the X's and O's and I'm a chess master of this. Like, well, no, you're not. No, you're not. But I wonder if how much of the CEO type he is. Because I think the bias is that the CEO type is maybe an older guy, right? Like Nick Saban and Brian Kelly are viewed in the CEO window. I think Sam Pittman at Arkansas is probably viewed in the CEO box. I think Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern, before he apparently condoned hazing for years, Jim Harbaugh is viewed as a little bit of both the CEO and tactician. Whether that's warranted or not is a different discussion for a different day. Maybe tomorrow. Hell, I don't know. And I think you can be part of both, right? You can be both CEO and really in the weeds on the X's and O's. I think you can be both CEO and cheerleader. And I know that cheerleader is not a fun or pleasant distinction for anybody who's in that box to hear. But it does exist. I don't know if Marcus Freeman fits the CEO box, because I don't think CEO lets a couple of the coaches that left this past year go. And I'm willing to, I would put good money on it that Tommy Reese is sitting in Alabama being like, crap, I shouldn't have left Notre Dame. But I think when you juggle all of those things, can you be in two boxes? Yes. But if cheerleader's your main box, the perception of you and your program is not good. And I think that's where Notre Dame rests, is that the perception of the program is not great. I think Marcus Freeman is going to do a good job at that program. I just know that there are some places you don't get the benefit of on-the-job training. And Notre Dame is one of those places. So the mistakes won't be excused at Notre Dame like they might be somewhere else. Frankly, on the final offensive drive for Notre Dame, they botched it. And then they botched the final two plays of the game and lost. And you can get by with that at some places. You really can. Notre Dame is not one of those places that you get the on-the-job training and everybody goes, you messed it up, but it's fine. Because the stakes are too high. They're now, for the rest of the season, there is no margin for error. They don't get the benefit of the doubt. They don't get all of the things that come with being undefeated. Whether they lost on a wacky final fluke play or not, the way college football is currently constructed, Notre Dame no longer has room for error. And that makes the rest of the season really fun and exciting, because now you have to watch the Notre Dame Duke game and the Notre Dame USC game and the Notre Dame Clemson game with intrigue, because I think that's a really good football team. I think that's a team that can play in the college football playoff. But if they stumble again, they don't get that opportunity. You can screw up at BYU. You can screw up at Kansas State. You can screw up at North Carolina State or whatever. You can have the mistakes that Marcus Freeman had on Saturday. And it's not going to draw the attention that having the mistakes in prime time on network TV against one of the sport's biggest brands, while you're also leading one of the sport's biggest brands. You just don't get that benefit of the doubt. And whether that's fair or not is a different discussion for a different day. But part of me feels for Marcus Freeman, and the other part recognizes that whether it was Marcus Freeman or whoever else took the Notre Dame job when Brian Kelly left, that's just the situation. That's just part of the reality of taking a job like that. So I don't know what the perception of Marcus Freeman is. And I don't know where Notre Dame goes from here, but I have a pretty strong feeling that they learn from it and are going to be better for it. And you just kind of get through the real crappy part that you're wading through right now. That's today's edition of the Daily Huddle. I'm Garrett Seawright. Thanks for making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, give the video or give the channel a subscribe. It really goes a long way in helping out the channel here. We can get in front of more college football fans, which is always a really good thing. If you're listening on a podcast, drop a 5-star review. That puts us in a lot more podcast feeds as well. We'll catch you back here, same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow here on the Daily Huddle on Saturday Glory.